Hello, this is Pigsy doing another video, and I'll talk today about the about feminine and masculine energies. I think with changes in the cosmos and changes in mankind itself, I think we've moved from a period where dominated by masculine energy, and so there was masculine systems set in place, and almost the feminine was a threat. It's also portrayed in this way in religion, in laws, and certain dogmas as well. It's all basically it's there. If someone does research, they see that's quite true. But now we're at a different phase. This is like our spiritual evolution. So I think it will go in phases. You may get this phase will be more feminine, so the masculine will be suppressed in certain ways. Maybe it be seen as aggressive, dominant. It will probably be blamed for all the problems in the world. Things like wars and situations like that have arisen due to masculine dominance. But it's basically the pioneer rich, and that it's turned basically economics and it's corporatized social structures. So at some point, even putting it out to tender, it'd be like, well, I can supply police with this training, these types of weapons, and so on. So it's kind of that's the problem. We've got a certain type of society that's selling everything and putting values on things, and it doesn't need to. It's like the medical, the way the pharmacy structure works. Medicines are there, but it's just to manage illness. It's never to solve it and fix it. And some of them generate illness that they're aware of. They're aware of the side effects and problems generated. They're also aware that there is other quicker solutions to dealing with it. I think the Chinese are quite right. They will say that disease will start in the stomach. So if you take care of your stomach, then that's when you leap forward. And your nutritional needs and your mineral needs. A bit like my other videos I mentioned, I'll be taking copper. My skin feels better. I might even regenerate some more hair. So it's just basically take care of these different things will give you will help regenerate your own body and you can self-manage. But a lot of people would be against that. The reason they'd be against that is because they say, well, we've got a business, we've got profit margins and we've got overheads and so on. But we get to the point where you've got to realise what money is. It's the false illusion, and that the government can subsidise people to encourage people not to do things. Like I wonder if, let's say for no smoking, they encourage certain devices to smoke for no smoking, but then basically they're just hitting these targets. Either way, the person's paying out for something. They're paying out for their voices and to manage their voices in certain ways. Is not really solving the bigger issues, but you see through the false illusions. I think generally that's where you should be thinking. So, but I think my approach is at the moment seems that my health is improving, and I feel to be getting further ahead spiritually as well, and going down my path. You'll get with naturally. I mean, I could say because I guess for myself. Having a certain psychic ability, clairvoyancy, something I've always had since a young age, that falls into feminine aspects. I've also raised in an environment where my mother took the lead role as the matriarch in the family. She had to because of circumstances. My dad suffered from an illness that affected his mind and made him. Basically, he would prioritise himself to a degree, so the family would already come second because he's unwell. But what happens is that you're exposed to how people react in situations, and then you learn them as coping mechanisms, and it becomes a part of your character and who you are. So basically, you draw from your parents different things. For people that don't have parents or they have one parent families and so on, they can always substitute with role models, and if they can identify positive role models, then they can substitute them attributes across. So it's not like you're trapped, but you've got to be careful on what the positive attributes are. If you're raising a single mum and there's instability, and then she says that your dad's this, your dad's that, you might associate that the male role model is, a basket or a gambler or whatever. It might the problematic. So a bit like I've had throwing out family history out here, but my sister identified that the mistake she was making was because she was sort of looking for people that had traits related to my dad, but I think these people aren't. It's her perception of it, because some of these people are more aggressive. They don't have a relationship with their mum. They don't have qualities like that. You might see with these people, they also fall into these troll types. I think if they're less connected to the feminine and they're more aggressive towards it, then they're more likely to attack people communicating. But I don't think they can back it up physically. So you get some nasty things. I just see something that was like saying get off the internet, grandma, or something, and I was thinking to myself, what gave you the right to even think that? Like you have power over another person. The other thing about power is you have to demonstrate that if this person believes you've got it, then he can be called out and challenged. That's the direct way of a warriorship. If someone says, "Well, I'm the whatever," and makes a powerful statement and insults someone's honour, then potentially it could do. I think in a situation where there's a woman involved, she could choose a male champion. She could say, right, I don't like the way he spoke to me. I want you to deal with it. And then he would say, because of what you said to my mother, blah blah blah. And then it'd spin out, and he'd say, give you a choice: you either apologise or. So that's the ultimatum. I mean, that's the masculine elements. But I think if you think of the masculine and the feminine is like fire and water, they can both nurture when used correctly, and they're also the really powerful destructive forces. So it's understanding that development, this spirituality that people are identifying. I think some people are identifying where they've got they're over-identifying with sexuality with their type of the masculine and the feminine attributes. They need to actually understand, maybe like romance, like if they don't understand that it's a part of the mechanics of adding value to something, then they missed the point. Otherwise it's kind of like the difference between fast food and a well-cooked meal. Sort of, you're missing the point. But also in the same thing, masculine thinking is that don't see it as your meal ticket, because you might not end up. Don't assume anything. Otherwise, that's a dangerous territory to go into. But yeah, I mean, basically, I think for men they might be developing more feminine traits. For women, they might become more. They might be more proud of being their feminine strengths. There will be a change in society, and I think the boat's rocking either way. There will be people that will try to manipulate that. There's all sorts of things that I don't like that's going on at the moment, just like subdividing people and trying to fall into this trap. Things like race is not an issue. If historically your family suffered from racial issues, that was the past. I mean, don't let yourself be sucked into it. I mean, obviously it's difficult. There's going to be like, if you're raised and taught something from a young age, like animosity, then how do you deal with that? So you have to look at it. You have to be constructive about it. I've had a female friend, and she grew up in a part of the UK that had quite an abusive experiences, and she also had some identity issues because she's mixed race, I think, as well. And what the outcome of that was that she tends to be she's given a psychotic levels of characteristics within her behaviour. I mean, she turned out nice, and then because she's having a funny mood, that she leads you into a debate that she wants an argument with, and it's like, well, I'm going to argue about this, and she'd be like, you white middle class, how do you know what it's like and all this stuff? And I'm thinking, okay, my life's okay. I live in an area where I'm not going to suffer too much. but I don't live with a silver spoon treatment. I didn't leave school and got given a car, and all these sorts of things. Or I didn't walk into educational environment and instantly got given everything I wanted because of skin colour and social status. Both my parents worked. Like I mentioned before, my dad went through a tough time. My mum picked up the pieces. She worked crazy hours, over 60 hours a week and stuff like that, in order to make things work. And she also put all of the time into her family as well. So it was a difficult period. But I tried to relay some of that to her. She had this fixed view, this lot of like us and them, and like you're from different species or what, just this kind of dogma that she's picked up, and she's but it's not about what she's saying. It's about her own wounds inside her own emotional, psychological problems that she's not addressing. I mean, she's a nice person in every other aspect. I quite like her. I get along well with her. It's just that I'm aware that there's a closeness. You can't get too close with her because there'll be just things you do that are racially charged. That's what it is. It's like throw this out in there. An example is I think somebody gave her like a Savloy or something at work, and I made a joke, and then she said, "Oh, and because it's a darker skin colour, to which she said, well, at least it's the right colour then for you. At least it's the right colour for you." She was like, almost hammering that in, and it's sort of like, well, once it was funny, now it's starting to be a bit. It's not funny anymore. That's just to alienate people. It's a little bit bonkers. But this stuff, it's like any environment. I mean, it's not the same as that. I wouldn't want to open up history, because at the moment the problem with history is all been rewritten. I don't know what the history is. You can only relate to your own family's history, because then you've got strong results of it. Like, what was it like for your grandparents growing up in the East End or Liverpool? What was it like when they first immigrated across here, and or whatever the background is there, and then how that's evolved. And that's should be all history should focus on, not really taught necessarily at school or from any political, because there's all motivations that go way beyond basic talk. There's a lot of idiots out there. It's like people screaming. I don't know. Life matters. All life matters to me, but that's it all has importance. But that's not the debate they want. And if somebody wants to have a debate about something like that, then we want an intellectual debate about that. And they'll tell me why they feel that way, and then I'll say, okay, but is that to do with the corporate structure? Is that to do with society? I mean, what are the underpinnings? What are the political motivations? I mean, do they want you to? Are they trying to depopulate the certain groups? What's going on? Are they demonise groups? Is there cultures? Are we dealing with the cultures? Because if you go off into race, you sometimes miss the point that maybe there's a culture within the police that needs to be tackled, or how is it for black police officers? How do they feel within that? There's so much that could be looked at and analysed from an intellectual level, and then to identify it. But all I get is like, this problem occurred. It's a reaction solution type of mentality, and it's been premeditated by other groups to do that. They say, right, we'll have a rally, have this riot, and it's just weird mind games by certain elite groups, corporate structures, social engineering. Because you can imagine it that. You look a bit like when you get the sales, they knock out the sales. Say, right, this is like cable. They use it like not be racist in any way, but this is they call it like Black Thursday, don't they, or something like that. And it's rolling out with sales stuff. And the idea is you get drop down sales, and everyone goes mad and buys lots of stuff. So it's a manipulation of the idea, if you drop the price, that we get rid of old stock. So what do you do if you're in the arms race? You're going to take 2-for-1 from shotguns. You're going to do something slightly different. If there's an engineered situation, then you can say, well, I've got a stockpile of these types of weapons, and they're rolling out. A bit like the reaction of saying, we'll take your guns. Actually, is that really what they want to do? Are they saying that so people buy more guns so that they can use that money to do it in other ways? I don't know, or justify something else they're doing, like raising their type of military thing, but the budget just goes up and it just increases basically. So it's a clever sociological engineering in that sense to create this profiteering. So there's a big picture. That's the main thing. With regards to race and beliefs and other things like that, I'd never had any issue with that. I think it was only when I was probably about early teens that I identified that some people fall into race categories. I just assumed that they were white, they were black, and that was it. There wasn't any. I never even thought about it. I never thought there's a segregation line there, because there never was. So as a kid, you play with anyone you like. There was never any issues. But it may be because I was a bit of a dreamer, so I never really got caught up in this dogma or socially engineered. It was difficult for my mentality to be trained. A bit like, there was no restrictions in the way I functioned, but other people might have had prejudice and things fed into them. I haven't. I've probably got some reverse that I'm quite. Basically, I have some strong things I'm more of an activist on. I won't tolerate certain things. I don't like bullying. I tend to think with equality. I don't get caught up in this, like I say, this framework. I've had it where people say, well, how do you make sure someone's cultural needs are being met? And I say, basically, you'd ask what, from equality, you just ask what, you look at the person's needs anyway. You wouldn't necessarily say, well, how have I met your religious needs? It's still pushing people into ways of thinking. They might say, well, it's kind of like you don't have to have all these type of gradings, or you are, or you aren't, or, even like important, kind of practicing religious, non-practicing religious way, and all sorts of things, just to make you belong to groups. And you get, like I say, a lot of that, I think, goes down to sexuality. I'm just going to be confused with what I see in some of these profiles, because it's so many different types, and it just doesn't make any sense. Basically, it always comes back to the fact you're interested in something that's feminine, masculine, or both. That's how it kind of functions, and how you identify with that. You could be you could be two males, but you're attracted to somebody more feminine traits than masculine traits, or the reverse of that in some way, or maybe you both attracted to both like your female traits and attracted that way, or your masculine traits. It's kind of like the butch, the feminine, something in the middle. This is different aspects, but all of us sort of fall into this spectrum. But I think overdoing it sort of into goes beyond that. Where does exist, and it's just confusing people. I was seeing a couple of schoolgirls walking down the street, and they were saying, "Oh, he's bisexual," their mate at school, and I just thought that's so strange, because in my day, it wouldn't be of any much interest. I think only people would say that they were probably they're gay and straight. That's literally all people knew, and people weren't actively. I think there was some things identified people's characteristics. I'm not saying there's any prejudgment there, or it wasn't so important, your sexuality. I think it got to a certain point where people, had to be. There was like the gossip, but it's more girls chatting about, what they've been getting up to, and it's quite liberal talking about some of their sexuality in the classes, So it's a bit shocking, but generally there were just groups that talk more privately about things similar to mainstream education. So that's it. Anyway, thanks for listening to my video, and I'll speak to you soon.